All right, welcome back. So we're in week 2, part 2. I have good news. It all gets easier from here on out. So far, you have learned like a lot about Photoshop. I've already taught you about layers. This unit is about layers. You know how to select and make selections and copy and paste. And I feel like that's like 90% of what you do in Photoshop. And the rest is just like playing and blending and doing stuff. And that's a lot of you learn from experimentation. There's 1,000 ways to do one thing. And that's what you're going to get to work on with your Underwater Odyssey. But you can start to relax now. Like this project is layers and doing some funky stuff with layers, but it's not that much. And they make it seem like more than it is. But the great part is, like I said, I taught you that on Tuesday, and I actually started teaching you about layers and stuff earlier than that. So you can start to relax and know like, okay, I'm going to have some assignments, and things are kind of like copying, you're just repeating the same things over and over and over to do stuff. And then from here on out, I'm just going to give you fun. Not from here on out. We're still going to do the book for 2 more weeks. And then after that, I'm going to give you like, here's a cool way to do this. Here's a cool way to do that. And it'll be a lot of fun from there on out. But you're learning the basics and you got it down. It's like we've been in this for a week and a half. So rest assured, you're getting there. You know it. And it's all kind of repeating from here. So with that said, let's bust into this unit on layers. Let's get it open. I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to use the proper open because I always go to the old school one. I'm going to go on my computer, and this is lesson 4. And we're going to start with the start file. I'm going to hit open, and there we are. And of course, we're talking layers over here, and we know the layers. Like that's what we started with, using the layer panel. I think the only thing I didn't really talk about is here. There's a lock. You can lock your layers, which means I can't adjust this white layer. If that's selected and I'm like, I want to draw on it. Oh, I can. Well, why isn't the locking working? Well, it locks it, but I don't ever lock layers just because I'm always moving them around. I'm doing stuff with them. See, I can't move it around. I'm grabbing it and it won't move, but I can move the pineapple. It's very rarely that I'm like, I need to lock a layer. But it's doable. You can do it if you need to. That's the only thing I didn't talk about. I don't know if you could lock more than one either. Never need to. Oh, cancel. Right click. Lock layers. You can lock more than one. All my things are coming up. But like I said, I rarely lock a layer. Sometimes other people do. They want that background always locked. Not a big deal. We know how to rearrange layers. You can pull them up. You know how to turn them on and off. We've covered all of that. So I think we're like that part, we're solid. Learning those layers. It's everything we do from here on out is all about the layers. Knowing them, again, labeling them is a really good help. There's some people who don't label them and they can just look at that. You can do weird stuff. But this is screen real estate. I'm just giving you extra things. Where is it? Panel options. If you go to panel options in that hamburger menu, you can make these little thumbnails, they're called, huge. But again, it takes up your screen real estate, and I want more room to work here than to work here. So I don't do that. It kind of bugs me. So that's under panel options. You go to medium maybe. I'll keep it on medium. Maybe that's better for teaching. But I don't adjust that much, but just something you can do with the layers. Again, extra information for you. So we have that first one. And what we're going to do is we need to add the beach. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to click on the beach file, and I'm going to hit Open. Now, they're teaching us something and I'm a little, I'll teach you my biases and what, I don't ever do that, but this is something I don't ever do, is you can arrange these. So like if you open like 25 photos, you can tile them so they're side by side like this, and it's two working windows. This confuses me personally. Like I'll be like over here and in like doing stuff, and if you click over here, like I don't like that idea. And then if you have more than one, say if you're like 5 images, you just get these little slices of each image, which I don't know if that's really a good thing to have. But if you want to work like this, you can. Here, it's like almost like a little perfect scenario, but it's something I don't really do. And it's another like work for me. I just kind of like open the one up, get what I need, move it over, and then continue on. But as we know, so I'm on the beach layer, and we want to call this layer beach. All I'm going to do is double click on the layer name and just call it beach. Done. They have, what do they tell us to do? I thought it was very funny. We got it over, and then they're like, drag it on over. So you can literally, with the move tool, I can grab this and move it over. And then if I hold down shift, I'm going to let go. And if you hold down shift, it'll put that image directly in the middle of your file. And then you can see it comes up here in the layers, and it's called beach. The other way you can do it, which is probably my preference, is you can click on the whole layer and just go copy and then paste, and it'll paste it in. And it pastes it in with the beach. To me, that's easier than dragging over, because as you saw, which kind of makes me nervous, I don't know why, is when I drag it over, I don't see it here. Like, where is it? Like, is it going to work? I haven't let go of my mouse button yet. Like I'm still holding, but I'm like, I would like some semblance that I know it moved over, and it doesn't do that until you release. So if I was working on this and I had this one, I would just make sure that layer's on. I'd just go copy, come over here, go paste, and then be done with it. Your choice. You're going to be doing this, like with your Underwater Odyssey, because you're going to be cutting out pictures from different areas, or you can bring all them into different layers and then like cut them out from there. But this is how you're going to get them in all those images. You can open them one at a time. You could try this window trick. That may be really helpful for that. Or only open a few, open one image, get it over, open another, and then you'll just have all your layers of all your images that then you start cutting and cropping and cutting out and pasting. So do as you need there. Start to develop your own habits of like what works best for you. That's what it is. Like we say, like I always love to say, there's 1,000 ways to do everything. Yeah, so there you are. So for some reason, why do I want the beach layer below? I'm gonna, whatever. Next thing, we're gonna add an effect to this image. Adding effects are pretty good. I will joke with some effects that we're gonna do, and it will hold true for the Underwater Odyssey assignment. One is, if the book assignment says add a drop shadow, fine, but you will never add a drop shadow again in your graphic design career. Drop shadows are a joke. They're like whatever floats off the page about a 1/4 inch ever. Like, I don't ever want to see that. You're like, oh, it's a cool effect. Yeah, whatever. It's I want you to look around in your entire life, like when you go home and look through every book, everything. And if you could point out a professional like book or magazine that has drop shadows in, I want you to bring it into me. It's just something that's not done. But we're going to add a border around this photo because like that's what we do to photos, because we want to make it look old timey. So all you do for that is double click. And when you double click, it's all coming up on my wrong thing, you're going to get this. And this is all like, I can add a bevel, emboss, stroke, inner shadow. I will say, use these. What's this stupid? With great powers, great responsibility. use these responsibly. They're something that everybody can use. I do use these things, but you can use them and make them look really obvious, in which somebody will be like, oh, yeah, you totally used that one move in Photoshop. And you're like, oh man, again, I want my Photoshop to not look like it's Photoshop. So if you can use these with some sort of like restraint and only to get the effect that you want, then it's really then it's a great effect. If you don't, then it just kind of becomes clunky and it looks like, oh, you turned on every Photoshop thing you could. Great. As you can see, I hit the little mark there. And if you look at my image in the corner, a little black line shows up, but this is still all wrong. Like it doesn't seem, it's because just like layers, it's actually highlighted on blending options. And I need to make sure that I'm highlighted on stroke. And then the information comes up here. All right. And they tell you what to do. It's like 5 point. You can go up to 5 point, but pull that slider and see what happens. All right. Okay. It's making a border and it's going from the outside to the inside. I see that. If I change this to the outside and I do the same thing, it grows it. So see what it does. Center, it lines it up in the center. And for some reason, it's rounding them, like something weird. Like I don't like that rounding. So they want us to do 5 point inside normal. So I'm going to do 5 point inside normal and the opacity at 100. And then down here is the color. And like you could change it to whatever color you want. They want it to be white. And I'm going to hit OK. That's the layer. And then you hit OK up here to close this out. You can add more than one effect to one layer. Like you could keep going. Like, again, I'm just doing this, but please don't do it. That drop shadow, like if I crank it and make it really obvious, like, oh, there's a drop shadow. Like it does both effects on one. If I don't want that, I just turn off that button. So that's the layer effects. We'll use that a little bit. I use it. I don't use it a lot. I use it mostly for color overlay. Sometimes, I don't think I ever use it for stroke. I don't ever do that. You can do some weird stuff with like some of the glows, but that's about it. So yeah, take it at face value. It's good to know. It's good to know you can do it. That's all I'm saying. And then if you look on your layer here, you see that you have added an effect and that effect is a stroke. And the more that you add, it will tell you like, oh, you added all these things. And then even here with that eyeball, if I had the drop shadow on, I could turn off the drop shadow eyeball. I could turn off the stroke. I can turn off the effects eyeball. So it gives you that control afterwards as well. Or you just double click again and it reopens this panel. So that's how you get in and out of those effects. We know how to rearrange the layers. It says put the beach behind the pineapple. Great. Turn on the white. Make the postage Hawaii flower, pineapple, and background visible. Postage Hawaii flower and pineapple visible. Everybody's hanging out now. Now we want to drag the beach in between the pineapple and the flower. And the other one they talk about is it's indicated by that blue line. So if I'm on the move tool, if you can see that blue line, that's an indication of which layer I'm on. And like when I hover over, it will show me if I'm, if I'm here because I'm on auto select, it'll change me to that layer. So it's a nice indication. You do have some great visual indications like where I'm at, what am I doing? So that's pretty great. Change the opacity of a layer. All right, we're going to select the postage layer. Oh, I think select it, not hit the eyeball. And then we're going to change the opacity to 25. I think we're going to do something else. Oh, that's it? All right. So I'm going to zoom in. We used to do, I think we come back to it. I don't have these memorized. But so up here for the opacity is where you change that. And like you can scrubby, this is called scrubby when you do it side to side, or you can do, type in 25 because we want to look like, it's been stamped. It's not really dark or hard on there. Later on, I think we changed that to we'll change that blending mode, which is, this is honestly the blending mode, I will say, is one of the most used items that I use. Is like you start layering like weird stuff on other weird stuff, and you can get some beautiful colors and like all this stuff. You're like, oh, I didn't know how that worked. It makes shadows look like shadows instead of like just like death traps. Like every put the black shadow in. Like that's where you play around. That's where you do a lot of great stuff. So, all right. Moving on in the assignment, click the eye icons next to the Hawaii flower and beach layers to hide them. Right click or control click the pineapple name, choose duplicate layer from the context menu. All right, so we're turning all this off and we're going to do something to the pineapple. So if I'm on it and I right click, you get a set, and it tells you this. You got to make sure you know where you're right clicking. I can do some stuff and we're going to duplicate layer. But if I right click on this part, the icon, I get a different set. So you want to make sure you're in one area to do a right click with some things, in another area to do something else. So I just want to, like, some people like, I wasn't in the right spot. Yeah. A lot of these you have to be in the right area and click on the right thing, correct thing. So right now we want to be here, and I'm going to go to duplicate layer. And it's going to give me this little pop-up window, and I'm just going to hit OK. And now I have pineapple copy. There we are. Now, with the pineapple copy layer select, this is why. This is the you're gonna look at the pineapple, and I'm gonna start cycling through. So I'm on the top pineapple. I got the lower pineapple. Then if I go to, and if I slowly go through these, things start happening. And what it's doing is it's taking this upper layer and adding effect to it, which affects the lower layer, which can change the whole look and feel of what's going on. And they want us to go to overlay, which I think is a good option here. Because if I turn this off now, this is the normal pineapple. But simply by making another pineapple, putting it on top and hitting overlay, it ups the contrast, makes it deeper, the colors pop. It's like one of those crazy things, like I wouldn't have known it unless I tried it. And that's a lot of what Photoshop is about. This image isn't looking like I want. I'll duplicate that layer and mess with these overlays, these blend options, and see if it improves the photo at all. It's a really quick way to go through and do that and get like cool effects. Like otherwise, honestly, if I was on this layer, I'd be like, I can make adjustments and stuff, and I'd be like tweaking, like, all these adjustments up here. But here, I made a duplicate and it popped it right away. And it's a really great, like, seriously, I use that almost every time I'm in Photoshop. I'm using that blend option on the layers. So just telling you my favorites. Oh, yeah. And then now, of course, it says go up to the postage stamp and choose multiply. So they want, they're showing off what these can do. Now, if I zoom in, it's hard to see what the multiply does. I think that's the darken to multiply. The multiply makes like the dark pop a little bit more. And sometimes they're very subtle. And again, working in Photoshop, to make people be tricked into not realizing you did this all in Photoshop is about subtlety, about subtle changes, and like what's reality and what are you tricking people into thinking is reality. There'll be times like maybe in future assignments, like that looks like cut out. It needs to be, blended into its surroundings so it feels like it's part of everything that's there. That's like the first key. And, Tuesday I talked about the Gaussian blur. And if you take an image and you Gaussian blur it just like by 1 or 2 pixels, oh, It makes all the difference. So there we go. You can save your work. Oh, resizing and rotating layers. We know about this already. So we turn on the beach. This is like, I don't even have to talk about this one. They want it smaller and they want it 15 degrees. So they say like, grab it from the corner. I'm gonna grab the corner. And they say about 50%. I'm watching my upper thing here. See where those arrows are? I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm gonna bring that down to where it says 50. I'm watching my numbers, 60, average about 50. I can't see what I'm doing now. 50, good enough. Go back up. So now my image is at 50. Okay, it's at 49. If I want it to be exact, I type in 50. All right. And sometimes I will say, and sometimes I'll tell students, you know what? It needs to be like 2% smaller. Well, then you go in here and you go 48. You know, like that was 8. It didn't take my 4, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes design comes down to small percentage changes to make the piece perfect. So we're at 50%. Then I'm going to move it up. And then they're like, angle it 15 degrees. Well, okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down shift. I can arbitrarily do it, and I can get any degree to 0.10, you know, 0, what I mean. Or if I hold on shift and I click it once, it goes in 15 degree increments, and I'm just going to leave it right there. One and done. It's the amazing shift button. Learn what shift does in everything. The shift button is amazing. So make sure you learn it. All right, so we got that turned over. And then they're like, oh, to finish the transform thing. 90% of the time, I think I'm done. And they're like, make sure you hit the check mark, or you can hit return. Or if you just go over here and just like go to a different tool, it does it all. So there's a ton of different ways to do stuff. This is one of them. I know some of you say the book says go up and do the checkbox. I just hit enter, or I go on to the next move and it automatically does it. But I think the book is teaching you, like, make sure you've completed that task. But I don't do that. It's just me. You can do it. Learn that text box if you want. I'm all cool with that. I'm going to move. I'm looking at my book, and I'm going to still move my beach. It's like right above here. I'm trying to get exactly what the book has, so I get an A in this assignment, besides my modifiers, which you'll need to do. There you go. But yeah, I do look like, how accurate did they move stuff? Is it about 50%? Are the colors correct? Yeah, I look at every assignment for all that stuff. Using a filter to create artwork. So we want to now go down. We're going to go on background, and I'm going to hit that plus. I want a new layer. I'm going to hit plus. This is one of those. This is the last time I ever want you to do this move too. We're going to call it clouds. And here's why. If you want clouds in the background, you go on one of those free sites and you find a beautiful picture of clouds. You do not use the Photoshop version of clouds, which they are teaching you here, and is ridiculous. So they're like, all right, so I'm going to teach you it, and just know this is the last time you'll ever do it. So I'm going to click on this upper color here in my color box, and then I'm going to type in the colors they want. Sorry, I'm laughing at how ridiculous this is. And they're doing RGB. So I'm going to do 48, tab 138, tab 174, and I get this light blue color. Let's talk about that for a minute. We're all together. Hey, what's up with this RGB I keep hearing about in CMYK? All right. RGB is screen colors. Your telephone, your TV, your laptop, your iPad, your tablet, billboards that are digital, anything that is projected light that digitally shows an image is projected in RGB. If you took a magnifying glass up to your screen, you would see a little stripe of red next to a little stripe of green next to a little stripe of blue. And that's like 1 pixel. That's the resolution. So when they talk about the resolution of your screen, that's these three lines jammed together in that tiny, tiny area to give you 1 pixel. And the adjustment between those 3 colors gives you, I believe, like 1 million or like 1.3 million different color choices. That's that's for screen color, RGB. When we print on a piece of paper, magazine, posters, paper billboards, newspapers, junk mail, all that's printed in CMYK. Now, that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K is for black. Those cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, used with a screening system and transparent inks, will create a lot of colors. Not millions. It gets muddy in a bit. It gets a little bit muddy. You can do a lot, but that's the difference. So if you're working for a screen, you can use RGB, and if you work for print, you use CMYK. It does affect the brightness of your images, and you'll learn more about that later on in courses when we're like, make sure you're working in RGB, make sure you're working in CMYK. It will affect prints. But while we were here and before we do this ridiculous cloud experiment, I wanted to go over that with you so you know. RGB, screen, CMYK, print. I'm always in print mode. So, all right. Now we're going to do this cloud thing. I'm going to go up to filter, render, and clouds. There's some clouds, some smoky clouds. Look at those. Don't those look like clouds? Yeah, don't do that again. Just today. You know, I should write in the assignment. I should change that out in the assignment. That's a new one. Instead of doing those clouds, find a better picture of clouds and put those in. All right. Dragging to add a new layer. Let's keep moving on. Why am I doing this? Oh my God. Okay. So this is complicated. This is overly complicated. We are bringing in another flower to this image. And so when you're reading it, and this is like overly complicated, all we're doing is like, we're moving our Photoshop window over in order to open a menu over here to go to lesson 4, to grab that flower, and you can literally pull this on top. All right. So I pulled that flower onto there. It depends on which layer you're active on. I was on the clouds layer. I think they tell you to be like on the pineapple layer. It's a great way to do it. I do this all the time. I have 2 screens, which makes it far easier than like going over here, moving that, opening that, and moving that. I would rather do it like the way they told you in the beginning and just do that open one, copy and paste it in. But it's another way. Again, like I said, I do this method a lot, but when you have 2 screens, you can do it far easier. And it's not an advocate like to run out and get 2 screens, but I'm just letting you know, like it is just easier. Don't worry about it. But yeah, that's what they mean. That's how you get in that purple image. You got to open the file, move everything over, blah, blah, blah. So it works. It's great. And then that's in. Flower 2, done. Adding text. Well, let's have to move this down because we're supposed to move it down into the corner like this. All right, adding text. Make the Hawaii layer visible. You'll apply text, just choose, deselecting the layers. Okay, So this is the one I always get confused about because I never do it. And because Hawaii selected, if you go to layer, where the fuck is it? I honestly don't know where this one is because I don't ever do it. Choose, oh, select, because it shouldn't be under select, it should be under layer. That's why I can never deselect layers. So all that's doing is making sure that none of the layers are selected. The other way I do that, if it's Hawaii selected and I really want no layers selected, I go to way low where there's nothing there and I click on that. It's a weird back habit I've gotten into, and usually I don't have giant, icons there. There's a second way to do. So you go to Hawaii and you're like, I don't want anything selected. You can click off the artboard as well, which is easier to me. Like if you're on something and you're like, oh, I don't want Hawaii selected, I just go over to where it's blank and click once and it goes away. So instead of going up to select, deselect all. More than one way to deselect the layer. I was going to say skin a cat. Now I said it, so I'm stuck with it. All right, tools panel. We're going to put in some type. Boop. We're going to click that T. I want horizontal type tool, and I'm going to click it. Oh. Then choose window. Oh, they want us to do this first. This never works for me, but. So we're going to open up what is called character. I'm going to bring it over here because it's more obvious. All right. So I'm on the type tool and I'm in the character. And this is where you do everything to do typography. I'm going to teach you later in the semester how to do like really cool effects on typography, but it's meant for like title stuff. I don't generally do a lot of typing or typography directly in Photoshop unless I need some really, really cool rad effects done. Normally 90% of the typography, 95 is done in the proper type program like Illustrator or InDesign. But here we're doing like some cool stuff. So select a condensed font. We use Birch STD. I don't even know if I have it. Oh, I do. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, select a different font. So it's Birch STD. It's supposed to come standard, kind of. That's why they pick it. The type is we want regular. So this is the font name, and the font family sometimes has other, and it could be like condensed, regular, bold, italic, blah, blah, blah. And that's another setting of this font. And then they want us to do 36 point. 36 is the size of the font. So fonts go in point sizes. So hopefully you're in typography and you're learning this. Fonts go in point sizes. They always go in point sizes. Man, I used to know it. 1/8 of an inch was like 8 point, I think. Something similar to that. It's its own measurement system. And no matter what, fonts are in points. They choose 36. Tracking. The tracking value is great to know. The tracking is this little one with like the arrow below it. There's tracking and kerning. It's the distance in between each letter. They want 250, which is a ridiculous amount of space. Great. And then they want us to color picker. Pick a shade of green. So the color, I'm just going to click there, and they want a shade of green. Okay. And then this is what I don't love that we're going to do, but please do it. They want the faux bold, which is this first T. So that's distorting the font beyond what it should be done to it. It's not recommended, and you'll learn about that in typography. And then this is like the double T is all caps. That one is okay. I'll leave it. And then they want this double A down here. They want it from sharp to, crisp. I never changed that one. So, oh, I'm going to go back and it's going to switch it. See, I knew that was going to happen. If you click around too much, sometimes it changes everything. All right, now I'm going to click below Hawaii. Oh, we want a paragraph. We want centered. Sorry, I almost missed that. It was on the next page. Make sure that's centered. So that's left align, center align, and right align. Get to know that too from typography. You're going to be hearing me talk about that a lot in future classes. I'll be like, make sure it's left align, make sure it's this align. And so ad nauseum, you're going to hear me talk about it. So I'm going to click below the Hawaii, right in the middle, and it pulls up that craziness. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. And it's right now, it says lorem ipsum. Because I zoomed in, I have to just like re-click on it. It's A-OK. And I double clicked, it reselects it all. And I'm going to type in island paradise. And then as they say, you go up and you hit that, or you switch tools and you're good. Now, the text is slightly off center relative to the Hawaii. Let's move it with the move tool. All right. We do a lot. There's like a lot of weird back and forth they have you do now with this. And again, what I can do is look for those pink lines popping up. If I get a magenta line going down the middle and my type wants to stop. That means it's perfectly in the middle. Like the computer knows where the middle is. Don't guess. Have it click in. Now it's perfectly in the middle of that page. Now we're going to apply a gradient. And I'm going to close that out. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to close that out for now too. I can always reopen those. You can always get your windows back. Again, the more real estate you give yourself for designing, the better it'll be. So when you can close windows, do it. Don't, because otherwise you'll end up with like 70 panels all over the place and your artboard will only be like this big and it gets frustrating. And we don't want frustration. We want design. All right. Now we're going to click on Hawaii. Now this is a tricky one. I'm going to right click on the image, not the panel, the image here, the thumbnail. I'm going to right click on it and hit select pixels and then look at my Hawaii. Marching ants appear. Isn't that great? So that's an easy way if something's already cut out to like almost cut it out again. The reason we're doing this is it constrains any effects that we're going to do to it to like inside it. And right now we're going to put a gradient in there and we want the gradient to only be in the Hawaii and nowhere else. And then that's why we have selected the marching ants. Now we're going to go to the gradient tool. The gradient tool is like this little rectangle that goes from black to white. Beep, boop, boop. And then we're going to go up here and we're going to change the colors. Oh, yeah, gradient. Okay. They want us to open up the gradient tool too. So they want this open. We'll open it because they asked. We're going to go to basics. And then we're going to click on foreground, background first, preset the foreground, background. Did I miss where to change it to orange? Oh, we're going to change it to orange. All right, so this, clicking on these, this is color to white, color to nothing. I use that gradient a lot. Like the color to nothing is like, you can do so many rad things. And then color black. Oh, let's go to oranges. No, I don't want oranges. Now I can change that. Now it's referring to what I have down here in my color palette, my foreground and background color. Now I'm going to double click on that green and I'm going to change it to an orange. Get a nice orange there. And I'm going to hit OK. And what it does is it changes my gradient. See how it does that? Now what I'm going to do is I've got the crosshairs. I'm going to drag up from the bottom. Now, if I'm going crooked, see I got a lazy hand. I'm going crooked. Just hold down Shift, and Shift will constrain it again. Again, every time you do stuff, like if you want it straight, hold down Shift, and you pull up from the bottom. Let me tell you something. I get this confused every time I make a gradient. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't want it that way. I want it the other way. You just undo it. Go back to the, undo it, make sure you're on the gradient, and then go from the top to the bottom. Like I honestly messed that up. And so it's just knowing, like, if you need to redo it, didn't work the right way, just undo it and do it again. And all I did was dragged it up from the bottom. Now when you got this going on, I can make adjustments on where the orange ends and starts too. Like if I wanted like really tight like that, I can do all this weird stuff by pulling it. Again, you play around. And again, the other thing, I'm always holding down Shift because I don't want to mistakenly like do that. And again, if you do something, undo, Control Z. So there we go. We got that going. Gradients done. All right, applying a layer style. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. We are done. I'm just going to click on the menu tool. We're good there, and you can see I've got this gradient fill in Hawaii. It's separated out. It's got its own layer. Turn it on and off. It's beautiful. Now we're going to go to the Paradise Island, and we're going to add a drop shadow, sadly. So I'm going to double click, move it over so you can kind of see it. And I'm going to go to drop shadow, and I'm going to make sure I turn it on. You can see how you can turn it on and do everything just by clicking on it, or just make sure it's highlighted so you see what's happening. It remembered what I did before, and it put that really low. Yep, the preview is on. In the structure, use global light. Structure, blend mode, yeah. Where's global? Oh, global light. Making sure global light is clicked. And then we're gonna make sure multiply. That's that blend mode. That's gonna make it blend in the background better. We want the opacity set to 75. The angle is set to 78 degrees. It knows that. Use global light. The distance, we want 5 pixels. I'm just hitting tab now. Spread is 30 and the size is 10. And you can see what it's doing right there. Yeah, it is what it is. It's just a heavy-handed drop shadow. I don't like it at all. There we go. So, okay, make sure that Yep. Oh, is this where you drag it? This is hard. I don't know why I always have a hard time with this one. All right, they want us to put the effect on Hawaii. So you can like option drag just the effect. So be careful. Press Alt in Windows or Option in the Mac. So I'm going to press Option, and then I'm going to grab just that little FX, and I'm going to pull it down. And I'm going to pull it onto Hawaii and let go. And what it did is it put the exact same effect that was on Island Paradise onto the Hawaii layer. So that drop shadow, I didn't do any messing around. It's the exact same drop shadow, and I could add that effect to anything. So if I had a border or I had a special like multiply weird effect, I can easily add it to many, many, many layers. That's the key, though, is you have to hold that button down first and then drag. And it's different for a Mac than it is a PC. I know a lot of students like mess that one up a little bit. All right. In the structured layer style. All right, so now we're going back here. Select the Hawaii layer. I'm on it. But now we want the FX button. And then we're going to go to, in the structure area, the layer style box. What am I missing here? Oh gosh, okay. Sorry. You know, they're teaching us a new thing. You can do an effects from the bottom of this too. I have no idea why they're trying to teach you more than one way to do it. If I click down there, there's a little FX, and if I go to stroke, that's what they want us to do. Again, they're showing us more than one way to do the same thing. So you can go down there. I just you get used to doing one thing. I'd rather just double click on there and have that stroke happen. Now this, I may have messed up with my patterning here because I don't know if the stroke's going to show. Stroke 5, we want, oh, outside. There it is. There it is. 4, outside, normal, opacity 100. And then they want us to select green. I'm going to actually, for the color, I want it to be the exact same green I use for Island Paradise. So once you click on that, it opens up this. But if I move over my artwork, I can click on that green. And that way those greens match instead of picking a different green. All right, select the flower layer. Flower layer, let's move this down. I press the space bar to get that hand open, moved it down like that. And then we're gonna do, select the, choose layer style. Okay, this is another one. How many ways can you do the same thing? Instead of double clicking on it, we're gonna go to layer and then layer style. And then we're gonna go to drop shadow. Again, 3 different ways to get to the same darn menu. You pick your favorite way. They're just teaching us all the ways. So the drop shadow is opacity, they want 60, distance 13, and the spread is 9. Again, you know, if you mess around with those, you can see what it does a little bit better here. You know, now we got our little drop shadow. It's showing up right there. Good. Oh, I was supposed to keep it open, but you know what? If I need it open again, what do? Double click on it. And then now we're going to add another effect to that. We're going to change color. So I want color overlay. Right. When did I click on? Oh, satin. I'm not getting satin. Whoever uses this. All right. Sorry. Choose a color that enhances the color, such as a fuchsia hue. So I'm going to click here and like pinkish, and I should be on preview. And it should kind of show what it's doing. I think I have to have it picked first. I'm gonna hit OK. Oh man. See, smarter than me. Cancel. Cancel. Satin. Never use it. Fuchsia. Pink. There we go. Now if I hit OK, and I'm not seeing it happen. Let's see. Opacity 20. I'm going to crank it. Distance. Oh, what's the distance? 22. I'm not seeing an effect happen here. Previews icon. That's why. You guys are smarter than me. Getting me beat there. Thank you. Too many weird things that I don't do. All right. So opacity 20. I get caught up in all the stuff I don't do. And that's why I'm like, what? Because I don't know how that enhances it. Like, what's the satin effect happening there? Like, I don't know. It made it pinker. I would adjust it a different way. So that's just me complaining then. Adding an adjustment layer. All right. Adding an adjustment layer now. We're going to zoom out because we're going to work with this lower layer. Select the Flower 2 layer in the layers. In the adjustment panels, scroll to the single adjustment list and hit Hue Saturation. So I go to Adjustments panel, and I'm going to go to Hue and Saturation. I don't like that it pushes my layers away. That's really disturbing to me. It's going to happen. You just got to deal with it. In the Properties panel, apply the following. Hue 43. Okay, so look what it's doing. I showed you guys this before, and it's going to tell us to make sure that that's turned off. But look at the pineapple, right? It's that thing where it's the coolest thing ever, and I do this. But if you're like working and you're looking at your adjustment panels, which sometimes I do, and you're blind to all the other things happening, like you've just seen that I do sometimes, like I don't see the bigger picture. I would just hit OK. And then you'd be like, why do you have a green pineapple and a purple sky and blah, blah, blah? And it's this guy right here, which means it's only going to do it to the one layer and not all the consecutive layers below it. So as soon as I click this, what I did will only affect that flower. There you go. And that's that change. So make sure you do that. Like, of all that stuff that I just screwed up with using those like panels and stuff, like that's a good one. Like that's one to remember, is like when you're working with those layers and you make up an adjustment, that's how you fix that. Because that's something I do all the time. And then there it is, and it shows that arrow down, and it's only affecting one layer. All right, select the Island Paradise layer. There we are. Select the horizontal type tool. And it's going to talk about here up in the options bar, change the size by a few points. So what? 32. Now, I don't know if you noticed, because I was typing up here, watch Island Paradise. I'll do it by more so it's, obvious. Because I'm selected on that and I have the proper tool selected, when I make changes up here, it automatically happens down there. So I changed it to 32. I'm happy where that is. All right. Last one. Create a border from a selection. This is it. Select the move tool in an options bar. Make sure auto selected is disabled. Auto select is disabled. Select the postage layer. Actually, I think this is supposed to be below it. I'm selecting the postage layer and drag it to the middle right of the image. Where do we want it exactly? Oh, we want it down, over and down. We want it a little bit over that photo, even further down. I'm looking at my reference that they give me right about there. All right. Select the Island Paradise layer. Move that back up. I'm going to hit the plus. We're adding a new layer. I'm going to select all. Go to select all. And all it's doing is it's basically putting marching ants around the rim, and then select modify border. So I'm going to select, this is something I don't do either, modify border. I get this little thing that pops up right there. I would type in 10. Select white for the color. So I should flip those. I'm going to hit OK. Oh, and then I'm going to flip these. So see my little selection? I'm going to zoom in. I got marching ants, and it's 10 pixels away from that edge. I still have to fill it. So I'm going to reverse those by hitting that little reverse button there. So white's on top. And then I'm going to go to edit and fill. And you can either just choose white or foreground color. You guys will be choosing foreground color because I asked that you change that. And there you go. There's your postcard from the book with some extra bonus points in there, some new stuff to learn and some stuff not to learn where I screwed up. But just to show you, like, that stuff happens. It happens all the time. So that's what yours will look like. Don't worry. These, the next assignment is going to tell you about. There's not much to say. You're not going to have to sit through it much. Boop. All right. For the matching assignment, you're going to create a postcard. It's a single postcard with 4 images. It's a single postcard with the background images and 4 additional images and the name. I think I forgot. Oh, create a title that includes at least 2 layer effects. So the title means like the name of the place. A postcard. It's a postcard with 4. I did have a example. I can bring in an example that's similar to what I want you to do, and I will do that. But like, picture your favorite place in the world, all right? And make a postcard for your favorite place in the world. It's gonna be like a cool background, like Rio de Janeiro, and I got a big ocean picture, and then I got 4 inset pictures of like 4 of the major tourist attractions there, and then I'm gonna type in Rio and like have some fun. So you're gonna make a postcard. I will upload a example of that, or a close example, so you guys can do that. It's really cut and dry of what you're doing, and you've done enough of this that you should know that, and just kind of read through it. Favorite place. Underwater Odyssey. Start creating your design. So now you have this. You know, part 2, you did design, create a photo. Now I want you to create a Photoshop document that's 16 by 9, cut out and create a layer for all your assets. And then start building it. We have like two more weeks on it. Yeah. But I want you to get this, that you have all your layers, everything's in one document, 16 by 9, 150 DPI, and get them all cut out. We know how to cut out everything, and we work from there. I think that's pretty easy too, because you've been doing this cutout thing the whole time. So it's just getting everything onto one Photoshop document with many, many layers, and that's that. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? You know I'm around. If I skipped over anything or messed anything up, hit me up. But I will come back and I'll add in a fake postcard to show you that. This Underwater Odyssey is a new project. You guys are the explorers there. You know what to do. For some of you, don't forget the peer reviews, and don't forget the difference between what you save for you and what you upload for me. All right? JPEGs. And let me just go over that once more. The JPEGs are exported. I have this And when I go to File and Save As, it will save as a PSD. Cancel. If I go to File, and if I go to File, Save As, again, and I click here, you are not allowed to do anything, JPEG, right? It's Photoshop, large document format, which I never use, Photoshop PDF, which I never use, and a TIFF, which I actually never use. These are kind of like, yeah, I don't ever use those. It's always Photoshop or another one. And then now you go to File, Export, and Export As. If you have any old people in the group like me, and you're like, I used to use Photoshop, and they used to, up until like 2 years ago, it was save, a JPEG was under Save As, and now they moved it out to this other one. So now you have to export as, and you export as a JPEG. The reason being, JPEGs are smaller files. Everything's flattened. You don't have the layers, and you don't have any modifying effects on there. When you work in the design industry and say you're working with like a photo something, you would generally never give your working file to the client. You would give them a JPEG, a high-res JPEG, because your working file is yours and it has all your tricks in it, and it's what they paid you to do. Because there's once in a while, what would happen is if you give your Photoshop file to a client, they can then give it to another designer and say, can you alter this? It's in layers. And the other person will be like, yeah, sure, I'll just take it apart. If you give them the flat file, they can't alter it, and they need to come back to you for work on it. It's kind of like a weird guarantee. So, but make sure when you're sending your files up, I ask for JPEGs, and then they show up as images in the discussion boards, and we don't have to download your PSD files. So just kind of get that straight. And yeah, you will always be working in multiple files for multiple things in different areas in graphic design. It's just something you're going to memorize. It's always Photoshop files and JPEGs, and then InDesign and Illustrator and PDFs. And that's generally the two that always get bounced around, but you're always going to be doing both. One is for you, one is for clients. So make sure you're getting those right. So, all right, cool. I'm going to close this out, shut down, and then add that postcard to the a postcard example. It's not going to be a correct one, but gives you an idea. All right. Thank you very much.